Friday, April 1st, and this is not an April Fool's video. Uh, I spend a lot of time thinking about working with, talking to business leaders about company core values. They ask us often to help them devise and improve their core values. So I wanted to spend some time helping those of you who follow me to upgrade your core values. And very often, that's not going to be about changing them so much as it might be about changing your understanding of them, changing the way you define them, changing the way you talk about them. Uh, there, if you follow me, you've also heard me talking about conventional unwisdom, and so today's core value that I want to help you upgrade is one of those where is, I think, a lot of conventional unwisdom, and that is authenticity. There's a lot of conventional unwisdom about authenticity, and people misuse and abuse, in my experience, this term authenticity that I think is a fundamental value. In other words, it's a foundational value. It's one that is required for other values to have meaning. It is a foundation on which other values are built. If you don't have authenticity in a specific meaning as one of your core values, then your other core values are likely to falter because this one is so foundational, so fundamental. And it's a value that I think is very often and very dangerously misunderstood. Now, Seth Godin, for example, I love Seth Godin. And if you're not familiar with Seth Godin is a marketing guru, and he is a bring your best to the marketplace guru. He is an absolute thought leader in that lots of people follow his thinking, and I am one of those people, and I really appreciate almost everything I have ever heard Seth Godin say. And one of the things that he says that I have not appreciated as much as most of the things that I've heard him say is that authenticity is overrated. He says nobody wants you to be authentic. He says, I would rather have you be professional than be authentic. And when I hear him elaborate on that, then it turns out then that Seth Godin and I don't disagree about what we want from each other, about what I want from you in your role in the work that you do, or what you want from me in my role in the work that I do. We don't disagree about the fundamental principle. We disagree instead on what authenticity means. And I think it's not Seth Godin's fault, because the way that Seth Godin is defining authenticity, I do what I want. I follow my impulses. I indulge in my impulses and in my moods, and I say whatever's on my mind, no matter what the consequences. Those those are ways of interpreting the word authenticity, and they're not what I mean when I say that authenticity is a foundational, fundamental value that all other values rest upon. Uh, and I think it is a very common way in which that word authenticity is understood. People say hurtful things in the workplace and at home. People say uh, hurtful things and then excuse it with authenticity. Well, I'm just being authentic. I'm just saying what's on my mind. And I think that just saying what's on your mind, doing whatever comes to you, doing whatever you feel like, or not doing whatever you don't feel like, that's not authentic. That's self-indulgent. And I don't believe that, at least in my definition of authenticity, authenticity is about following the impulse and doing whatever the heck you want and saying whatever the heck you want, no matter what the consequences. I don't think of that as authentic. I think of that as self-indulgent. I think authenticity in its truest form, in its most valuable form, I'll put it that way. In its most valuable form, authenticity is not about self-indulgence. Rather, it is about discipline. It is about asking, Who am I at the core? At the core, what do I care about? What are my highest priorities and my highest values? And then acting in accordance with that. When you're sane, sober, when you are in your most true self, who you are at your highest, what would you do or say in this moment? That action, which often takes a significant amount of discipline to engage in, that action, that utterance, that speech, that's what's authentic rather than following the impulse and doing whatever is on your mind at the moment. So uh, let's look at this at what is inauthentic, because I think that will help us to better understand what is authentic. And one of the enemies of authenticity is fear. I'm afraid of what people may say if I express this opinion that I think might actually be useful, right? If everybody is going along with idea A, everybody is looking at idea A as the best way for us to proceed. It's the best new product for us to take to market, or it's the best marketing strategy for us to bring to market. Everybody's on board with that. And I think it's a mistake. But because everybody's on board with it, I'm afraid of the response. I'm afraid of the reaction that I will get. I'm afraid of being ostracized, really, at the end of the day. This is a fear of being other, and so of being removed from the tribe, right? Because I am afraid of that, I might hesitate to share my objections or my concerns about the strategy that or the tactics that everybody is behind. Keeping that honest, true opinion to myself, that is inauthentic, because you're giving into fear rather than truth. So you might be asking yourself, well, then, Aaron, if authenticity has me stating my opinion despite uh, the possible result that I would be ostracized or disliked, how is that different from what you were talking about earlier of saying what might be hurtful, right? If you think that's true, whatever, yes, you do look fat in that dress, or the way that you handled the Schuster account, I think was stupid, right? That the purpose of bringing truth forward is different in those places, right? The purpose is, what will it contribute to the whole? If it will contribute something important, something constructive to the whole to speak, and you don't, then that is inauthentic. If what it will contribute is pain, if what it will do, if what your objective is certainly is to hurt someone, is to lash out, is to get your licks in, right? Then that is not authentic, where you're putting your values first. That's lashing out, where you're putting your fear first. Are you putting your values first? Are you putting fear first? Are you putting contribution first, or are you putting fear first? Are you putting fear in the driver's seat? This is about more than honesty. This is also about being uniquely you. If you resist using certain vocabulary that's just you because you think it might make people think you're weird, right? That is not authentic, because you're putting fear in front of being uniquely you. And when it comes to diversity and inclusion, I love what Brene Brown said, which is that let me make sure that I get this right. She said the opposite of belonging is fitting in. So if you are shaving bits off of yourself, or if you're cramming yourself into a certain shape in order to fit in so that people don't think of you as different, then that is inauthentic, and it actually cheats the group. It cheats the whole, it cheats the company, it cheats your team out of one of the values of diversity, which is the ability to see problems from different perspectives or bring different solutions to the problem. Because your uniqueness brings unique perspective, it also brings unique possibility. And if you're cutting off that uniqueness, then out of fear, then that is not authenticity. When we talk about authenticity as a foundational and fundamental value, we are talking about bringing your full and true self, not just your impulses. So we've talked about this a little bit. Brutal honesty, I don't think of as authentic unless you are willing to say, I put honesty in front of all other values, people's well-being, people's feelings, right? Not that I think you should spare people's feelings in all cases. And notice that I've put the term brutal here, right? There are ways of being kindly honest, right? That are not brutal, where you're taking into account what is the best way for me to convey this truth to this person. That is not brutal. If you're saying, all right, well, let me think about how I might ease in to sharing this, or what is the context in which I should share this one-on-one, maybe a way of taking the brutality out of some hard feedback where you're one-on-one with a person, which is how I always recommend you give feedback, whether it's uh hey, I love the way you did this, or hey, the way you did this was really ineffective, right? Either way, I think of feedback as something to do one-on-one. Doing it one-on-one helps to take the brutal out of it, right? Brutal honesty is likely not authentic because there are ways always of telling full truth, hard truth that may be hard to face and hard to speak. Doesn't have to be done with brutality. Authenticity requires that there's no hidden agenda, that why I'm doing this, that what I'm hoping to get from this is not different from what I'm telling you is the reason. Now, this is one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of the performance improvement plan, the PIP, right? And that's because the PIP, and I'm not going to go too long down this rabbit hole, but the PIP was designed not initially its birth uh, from HR and from employment attorneys. Its purpose was not to improve performance, but rather to shield the company from future liability in case of a wrongful termination lawsuit, where you could say, look, we put them on a performance improvement plan. Its intention was to improve their performance. And I know that almost everybody now who is using a performance improvement plan, their intention in their heart of hearts is to improve that person's performance. I will generously own that I believe that many, if not most, if not nearly all people who put an employee on a performance improvement plan, their intention is actually to improve their performance. But the birth of that tool, and for many, many years, its primary use was not actually to improve performance, but rather to shield the company from liability. That is a hidden agenda. And so the performance improvement plan is, by its design, not authentic, and therefore it's corrosive and toxic to your company culture. And I've talked about this a little bit before, so I'll just touch on it one more time because I think it's so important that authenticity is the channel by which diversity becomes inclusion, and that it takes both diversity and inclusion. It takes inclusion to have the benefit, to reap the benefit of the diversity. If you don't have inclusion, then that diversity is essentially a decoration on the wall. It's not a part of your utility chest. It's not a part of your tool chest until it is included. And so to find ways of creating belonging, you are different from me. And that is one of the things that I value about you. When I express that, when I express that position, and when I prove it through action, then what I'm doing is I am encouraging you to be authentic. And I think most of us, if not all of us, in order to truly be authentic in the ways that I'm talking about here, that are not about self-indulgence, but rather about allowing in every moment my truest self to be reflected in my actions and my speech. When we value each other's diversity, when we value each other's differences of opinion, differences of perspective, differences of style, when we value and act on that value, then we encourage one another to be authentic and to bring our diversity, to bring our best selves. So to say it one more time, uh, authenticity does not mean, in its truest form, in its most valuable form, I do and say whatever I feel like in the moment, which is the definition that Seth Godin clearly operates from. It doesn't mean I don't feel like doing a video today, so I'm not going to offer you, the folks out there who might get value out of it. I'm not going to offer these thoughts to you, these perspectives to you, because I don't feel like it. No, today's Friday. It's the morning. I have decided in advance. This is part of the work that I do. This is part of the way that I bring value to my audience. And so I am here, whether I feel like it or not. Whether I feel like it or not, I bring my best today. That is authentic because it's me acting on the things that I hold most valuable rather than me acting on the momentary impulse, the momentary feeling. Authenticity looks very much the same from day to day and from moment to moment, rather than being capricious, rather than being moody, rather than acting differently from day to day and from moment to moment, from circumstance to circumstance. So here is what's now about 17 minutes that I have spent sharing with you how to upgrade this critical, foundational, fundamental core company value. If authenticity is one of your company values, then I encourage you to share this video with everybody on your team so that you all aren't just referring to a term without definition, but that you're using that term to reflect a meaning that you all hold in common, and that you hold its meaning at its highest possible intended meaning, the one that is going to support your company, your team, your culture in being truly authentic and really holding your values, your intentions, your best selves to account. That is the discipline. That is the discipline of authenticity. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for sharing some time with me, and I hope that this has been valuable.